We have Mr. Jefcoat, Mr. Rome. All right, you both are able to hear us?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Yes, I am.
I am going to allow you, Mr. Jefcoat, to pronounce your client's last name.
His name is Efthemes.
Efthemes?
Correct.
All right.
We've all had trouble with that.
All right. And so this is cause number 21-30556, Anthony Efthemes versus Amguard Insurance Company. Mr. Jefcoat, you may proceed.
Yes, sir. So, Your Honors, this case really is a time case, and it comes down to the matter of when, according to Louisiana Statute 32-125, Mr. Aleem, who's the defendant driver in this case, should have acted as a reasonable and prudent driver and pulled to the right of the roadway. Mr. Aleem's actions were unreasonable in that Mr. Aleem first comes on dash cam video at the 9:36 mark. From that part on, he has more than 30 seconds to move to the right of the road and stop his truck, which is heavily loaded at the time. There are, and I presented to the court this morning, I think 13 different screenshots that I've presented to the court. The first starting with the 8:04 mark, which is more than 2 minutes and 20 seconds prior to the incident. There are two vehicles that have moved to the right and have moved off the roadway. At the 8:08 mark, there is a white pickup truck that has moved to the right off of the roadway as the pursuit approaches. At the 8:32 mark, which is roughly 2 minutes prior to impact, there are two vehicles that have moved to the right-hand lane. One is a truck towing a boat. The second is a heavily loaded 18-wheeler. At the 8:35 mark, there is again the 18-wheeler, which is loaded, which has moved to the right. At this time, as we move through these different screenshots, all of the pursuit vehicles are passing these vehicles on the left-hand side as these vehicles yield the right-of-way, move to the right. At the 9:12 mark, there is a white pickup which has moved to the right-hand lane and is slowed.
Let me ask you about what's at the 9:12 mark. In front of the white pickup to the extreme right, what is that?
That is the next screenshot, Your Honor. That is 9:14. That is a vehicle.
No. I'm asking about 9:12.
Yes, sir.
There appears to be a vehicle in front of the white pickup truck that's pulled over on at least it looks like it's on the shoulder to the right.
That is correct, Your Honor. And in the next screenshot, there's a picture of that.
I don't want to go to the next screenshot. I want to ask you about that screenshot.
All right.
What is the vehicle that appears to be farther down the road in front of the pickup truck on the right? What is that?
It is a vehicle that is pulled off the roadway.
All right. That's a private vehicle. That's not a police car.
That is correct.
All right.
So if we move to the next screenshot, it is a closer photograph of the vehicle we just discussed, Your Honor. It is a white, it looks like a private vehicle on the side of the roadway.
All right.
The next vehicle is a gray vehicle that is in the right shoulder at the 9:22 mark. It is also slowed in the right lane. At the 9:34 mark, there is a white vehicle traveling all the way in the right lane. Then as we approach the 9:40 mark, there are two vehicles that are in the right-hand lane. And there's the first screenshot I have that actually shows Mr. Aleem's vehicle in the middle lane. He appears in the video at the 9:36 mark, Your Honors. At the 9:43.
How much time elapses between 9:22? I just want to make sure I'm understanding the time elapsed. How much time is elapsing between 9:22:01 and 9:34:07?
9:22, Your Honor, and
9:34.
That would be 12 seconds.
All right.
Roughly 12 seconds.
All right.
Excuse me.
I guess it's just interesting that, well, maybe that's a different white. Okay.
This is chronological as the dash cam moves down the roadway, Your Honor.
So is that a different car in 922, in 93407 than the one in 92201 on the right? Is that a different white car?
It is.
All right.
Counsel, does your case rest on proving a violation of this statute?
It does.
Why don't you just argue straight negligence? He didn't slow down. That was negligence. I mean, why the statute?
Well, the statute, it protects police officers in this type of pursuit, Your Honor. And so it is.
That's my question. Let's see, I think the reason I ask it, to me, the harm, it has to be within the risk of the harm that the statute's aimed to protect. So yeah, someone doesn't get out of the way and the emergency vehicles get in a wreck, absolutely within this statute. To me, it's a quite attenuated what happens here, which is that by not slowing down quickly enough, he hits the spikes, which they're trying to retrieve, which gets him tangled up on this guy's hand, which gets his finger all hurt. I mean, that's within the harm that the statute's meant to protect. This seems to me pretty far-fetched. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it seems really attenuated.
I don't think it is, Your Honor, just by the fact that
It's never happened before that you know of.
that I know of, no, sir.
But it's not unusual or unforeseen, I guess is the legal word.
Yes, but the motorist stopping or slowing and moving to the right happens every day, and that's the reasonable motorist did it. And in these exhibits I've produced, we have no less than 10 vehicles that have yielded the right of way to the chasing vehicles.
I get why you're saying he didn't follow the statute. What I'm saying is, what's your evidence that this statute is about protecting a problem like this, as opposed to preventing wrecks when emergency vehicles are flying by with their sirens on, which is a dangerous situation. And yeah, you better slow down and get to the right or there's going to be crashes.
Yes, sir. And so there are actually two parts to the statute. There's the one about that we've talked about in 125A, which is the slowing down and moving to the right and stopping. And then under section B1, the last sentence says that if a lane change is not possible, which is what Mr. Aline has said here, the driver shall slow to a reasonably safe speed. He's testified he's moving at 65 miles an hour when he notices.
So that's why you're saying he violated the statute. What I'm asking, in what way is this type of problem that happened what the statute was aimed at protecting?
It's aimed at protecting police officers in their duty.
That's pretty broad. Okay.
And so in this particular situation, it's not based upon the person who's actually, it's not.
So let me protect, if this truck driver didn't slow down and ran into another vehicle, citizen's vehicle, that wouldn't, the statute wouldn't be meant to protect other drivers. It's just about police.
No, that would be a general negligence claim in my opinion, Your Honor. But this situation is no different than in my opinion, it's no different than if the actual driver of the truck had run into the back of the police car on the side of the road. It's no different.
You don't think the statute's aimed at protecting all people on the road? Interesting. Okay.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't hear your question.
Okay. It's okay.
What kind of specific injuries fall within the scope of this emergency vehicle statute?
I don't think there's a limitation on the injuries, Your Honor.
You don't?
I do not.
Except that it has to be a police officer.
Correct.
If the truck driver hits another car, you're out of luck. It doesn't.
It doesn't have to be a police officer, Your Honor. I think in fact, in some situations, it's called the fireman's rescue doctrine. There's this situation is for emergency personnel. It's broader.
Oh wait, but a Joe Q citizen, you're saying if this guy doesn't slow down and the ambulance is driving by and there's a wreck, you're saying just a regular citizen who's injured because a car doesn't follow this, another citizen doesn't follow this statute. You're saying the law does not protect that person, only government people, emergency personnel.
In my opinion, that's how I would interpret it. The other one would be a simple negligence claim, Your Honor. But the police officer in this case is in a specific class of persons who's protected by the statute.
Even if you're right, that doesn't preclude negligence. I mean, the statute is not the way to go about it. Okay, but you said you need the statute to win.
I think there's a clear violation of the statute. I don't know if I need the violation to win. But in addition to negligence, this is a specific violation of the statute under the Louisiana Code. Might I continue?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So upon approach of the vehicles, as we look at exhibit 12, you see the emergency vehicle at 10:21. The dash cam on the truck has now moved to the right, Mr. Aleem. And as can plainly be seen, there's no illumination of his tail lights, which indicate he is not braking at this time. And this is immediately before impact, roughly 7 seconds before impact, where he is not braking at the time that this screenshot was taken. And then the last one is approximately 1 second before impact with the stop sticks. And it plainly shows at that point that Mr. Aleem is braking. So as indicated, the first 10 photographs that were presented to you all show a vehicle that has yielded and moves to the right of the emergency vehicle. Mr. Aleem has not done that. If we actually look at the dash cam, he actually clears the last black truck in screen 10 or screenshot 10 at 9:41. At that point, he does not move to the right. He does not yield the right of way. He does not illuminate his brake lights for a full 30 seconds. And at this pace of 65 miles per hour, he moves approximately 2,800 feet down the highway and does nothing either to put his brakes on, move to the right, yield the right of way, though we know all other vehicles in his general vicinity are doing that as he moves down the roadway. He had numerous opportunities to do this, to move to the right, to apply his brakes, to slow down, to stop. He did none of that as he approached the stop sticks. So he has vehicles approaching him from behind. He has visible officers in front of him, which are clearly illuminated by the officer cam at 7:36 of the officer dash cam or the officer chest cam. And he does not do anything as he approaches. The duty is arisen, and whether or not the duty has been breached is a question of fact for the jury. It's not a question of fact for the judge in this particular matter. The timeline clearly establishes that the duty is owed under the statute, and the statute was breached. The duty was breached by Mr. Aleem. And I'll hold my remaining time. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Rome. Mr. Rome, you're muted.
My apologies. Good afternoon. Curt Rome on behalf of the defendant appellees. I want to thank the court for giving us the opportunity to move this to Zoom due to personal reasons. But I want to touch upon three main points today: the use of the video and whether or not this is a judge or jury question. Secondly, the evidence that actually is presented in this matter, and then the statute that we've been talking about. This is an instance in one of the rare cases where we actually have video that fairly well documents what happened. Your honors all have it, and I believe we've all viewed it. So this is not a situation where we have to provide interpret that in the light most favorable to the plaintiff. There's plenty of case law in this circuit and the courts in this circuit that say you can interpret it in light of the video itself. So you don't have to reach and get to an absurd or unreasonable position in interpreting something in favor of the plaintiff. And the evidence we have here is basically Mr. Aleem's testimony. He testified that he's driving down Interstate 10. He is fairly heavy. He's about 79,000 pounds. When the chase cars come behind him, he can't slam on his brakes and cause a jackknife. He can't move to the right immediately. He can't move to the left. So he moves the truck into the right lane as reasonably safe as he can. And Mr. Aleem and the defendant's accident reconstruction expert has calculated and supported Mr. Aleem's position. And he takes this vehicle that's traveling at about 65 miles per hour down to about 40 miles per hour, which is as reasonable as one can do driving a heavy truck of that nature under these circumstances. Trooper Efthemes or any of the other witnesses never saw Mr. Aleem and his truck coming. They testified they didn't. They didn't even see him when they were pulling the stop sticks. So the only evidence we have of what occurred is Mr. Aleem, the video, and an accident reconstruction expert who has interpreted the video and says he acted reasonably. And so,
what's the basis for the accident reconstructionist conclusion that he acted reasonably? What's the basis for that determination?
What's the basis? Is
Yes.
that he's calculated the speed on this truck, and the truck could not have stopped before it ran over the stop sticks. There was no way he was going to pull to the right and stop. He did bring the truck down. You can see in the video where the brake lights are illuminating, but you can't slam on the brakes or you're going to jackknife. And if that happens, we're going to be here in a different case over whoever got injured in the jackknife accident.
But did the expert consider whether he could have started braking earlier than he did?
I don't think his opinion.
That wasn't calculated, was it?
I don't believe it was specifically calculated whether he could have started braking earlier. But the only evidence we have of when Mr. Aleem was fully cognizant of what is occurring around him is his testimony. And he's the one that's in control of this truck. So he's got to take the truck and move it to the right in a safe manner, which he did. And it brings us to the point of 1325, Louisiana Revised Statute 32-125. Mr. Aleem complied with the duty of moving out of the way. He simply couldn't get the truck stopped. He did move out of the way. You see a number of other vehicles on the video. I know Mr. Jefcoat noted several that actually brought their vehicles to a stop, but a number of other ones, the same thing, move over, start slowing down, and allowing the chase cars to move on past. Aleem, he complied with that duty. He started slowing down. So the problem is, and I believe Judge Costa brought this up earlier, is how is this accident within the scope of that duty? And if you look at where this statute lies within the statutory scheme, it's within the right-of-way section of the traffic rules. It's not within some general negligence scope set of statutes. And Mr. Aleem did what he should have done. He yielded the right-of-way. He got out of the way. He just couldn't stop the vehicle. And hence, I think the scope of duty question is, does it apply to this plaintiff for this injury in these circumstances? And I think the answer here is clearly no. This is a far attenuated set of circumstances for what yielding the right-of-way to oncoming emergency vehicles anticipates. The statute in the right-of-way is so as to not to cause an accident with those vehicles coming by. Here, it can't anticipate having another officer hiding behind his vehicle and pulling stop sticks out in front of oncoming traffic when no one is out there warning Mr. Aleem or other traffic that stop sticks may be pulled out in front of you. There's no way for Mr. Aleem to know that and to act within that set of facts. So hence the statute is one that doesn't encompass the scope of duty. Also relative to the duty risk is the causation element. It's not Mr. Aleem who had any control of these stop sticks or knowledge of these stop sticks. It was Trooper Efthemes, the one who put them out and pulled them, is the one who caused or created the scenario in which this was going to occur. He is the one that had full control of when to do it, not Mr. Aleem. So in light of the video and what you see, the only evidence of what happens is that Mr. Aleem acted reasonably and as best he could based on his own testimony and the accident reconstruction expert and his calculations and confirming Mr. Aleem's handling of the vehicle and the lack of a breach of the scope of the duty not extending this far and the causation element not existing here I ask the court to affirm the summary judgment entered in the trial court. Thank you.
Rebuttal. Mr. Jefcoat, you're muted.
Get off, Your Honor. How's that?
All right, we can hear you.
Okay, just a couple of points, Your Honors. Number one, they hired an accident reconstruction who calculated the speed at approximately the lane change at the 10-minute, 11-second mark to the point of impact, which is at 10:28. Nobody calculated any speeds in regard or braking distances from the point where he clears the last black truck in exhibit 10 that I gave you this morning, all the way to this, which is more than 30 seconds. There was no calculation done on that. Clearly at 2,800 feet, he has plenty of time to stop the truck. He has plenty of time to move over and brake, and he doesn't do that for 30 seconds. It's a clear violation of the statute. And they talk about Mr. Lean being cognizant. Obviously, there were 11 other vehicles I showed you in the screenshots today. They were all cognizant of having to move over and yield to the vehicles that were chasing in pursuit. Mr. Lean was either inattentive or he just disregarded the vehicles as they moved up behind him. And so that's the cause of this accident. If he had moved over and slowed down like the other vehicles in this, then we wouldn't have had the issue in front of the court. In regard to the negligence claim, as I stated earlier, under this statute, Trooper Efthemes is a—
Just to be clear, Mr. Jefcoat, are you maintaining he should have stopped before he reached the spikes? Is that what you're saying? He should have pulled all the way over on the shoulder and stopped before he reached the spikes.
I'm telling Your Honors, that's what the statute says, but at least he should have moved over somewhere in the 941, 942, 943, 944, 945 point, and then he was still had approximately 30 seconds to stop the vehicle, which he did not do. Or slow the vehicle.
So he should have stopped on the highway, or should he have shouldered the vehicle?
What the statute says, he should pull to the shoulder. Now, I know not everyone does that, but two wrongs don't make a right.
And so you maintain he would have had time to do all of that before he reached the spikes?
I do. If he'd have started at the time when the last vehicle moved over, he'd have had more than 30 seconds to move to the right.
Someone went over on the shoulder, they could have run over the police officer.
Or stopped the vehicle completely, Your Honor.
Well, you get what I'm saying, though, the officer's on the side. It could have been a whole, I mean, I'm not minimizing what happened, but driving over on the shoulder where the officer's over there could have been catastrophic.
I would agree that if he'd have done that at the time he decided to move over, it would have been catastrophic. What happened in this particular case is he ignored the pursuing vehicles for 30 seconds before that, Your Honor.
Most cars weren't pulling over, though. I mean, most cars are slowing down. You're right. I saw hardly any cars pulling over.
I think there were 3 out of the 10 I showed you, Your Honor. But the other 7 all moved to the right and slowed down. And the last black truck moved over at 941.
Why does moving to the right matter? Because he couldn't have hit the spikes if he was, I mean, center lane right. I understand why you're saying the slowdown matters from a causation standpoint, but I don't see why the lane, maybe it just matters for violation of the statute, but
well, it matters for
whatever lane he's in, right?
It matters for a couple of reasons, Your Honor. The spike sticks in this particular case were drawn from each side. Right. And so even if he maintains the center lane and slows to a reasonable speed, the spike strips would have been out of the way. So by moving to the right and not moving to a reasonable speed, that's how he impacts the sticks.
But the reasonable speed, if he'd gone at the exact speed and stayed in the center, wouldn't he have still hit the spikes before they yanked him off?
Well, they're only one lane wide, Your Honor. So as they cross,
it's only in the right lane.
Yes.
Oh, I see. But the officer's in the median too. But the spikes only extend across one of the lanes, but that strings across the whole thing.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And they're pulled in conjunction in opposite.
It would have been better if he was in the center lane.
Possibly.
He couldn't have run over the spikes.
He might have missed the spikes completely. Correct.
But your argument is he should have been out of that center lane and on the shoulder.
He should have been slowed down to almost a stop like everyone else, and it would have never occurred.
It would have never occurred because what? If he had
Because-
slowed down but not stopped, what would have prevented him from encountering the spikes in that outermost lane?
Well, their experts said he was moving about 40 miles per hour, Your Honor. If he brakes earlier, he's on maybe at 20 miles an hour. And he's not even close to the spike strips. He's braked way before.
So he stopped. You got,
Or possibly
he's got to stop.
He could have stopped.
And I'm saying, well, he's got to in order for this not to have happened, according to what you're arguing. But you're telling me only 3 out of the other 10 vehicles stopped.
No, what I'm saying, Your Honor, is if he would have slowed to a more reasonable speed, which had maybe been 20 miles an hour, he'd have been further back up the roadway and never encountered the strips.
Because the spikes would have been pulled out, right?
Correct.
They would have removed the spikes from in front of him,
That's correct.
so he wouldn't have hit him.
By maintaining a high rate of speed, he struck the spikes.
What happened to the vehicle they were chasing?
He was stopped up the road. I don't want to give you misinformation, but they popped some of the tires with the spike strips, and the vehicle was stopped up the roadway, maybe a mile or so up the road. And the suspect was apprehended.
Was it a traffic violation or a warrant? What was the issue?
I don't know, Your Honors. I know it went on for 20 or 30 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. The court will take this matter under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.